Namaskar. My heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being here. The prayer today from the Prayers and Meditations is a prayer written by the mother, which was written by the mother on December 16, 1913. This is before she had arrived in Pondicherry. And the title that emerges from my limited mind is Love versus Intellect. Now, in this prayer, the mother is actually drawing out a distinction between the way of the heart and the way of the head. The way of the heart is, of course, love, and the way of the head is the intellect. Now, often seemingly there is a conflict, though there is no conflict, which is mightier. And the mother has traveled through all the paths. When she's writing this prayer, she has already had the summit realizations of many, many yogas, the Kundalini yoga, the yoga of the Gita, and she was an adept in Buddhist yoga. So she had gone through all the paths. And after going through all the paths and after having all the realizations, if we were to ask the mother, Mother, what is the simplest, the easiest, and the shortest way? The mother would reply, and she has replied, it is through the heart. There is a difference between the knowledge that comes from love. Love also leads to knowledge. So there is a difference between the knowledge that comes from love and the knowledge that comes from the intellect. Mind or the intellect will, of course, compare, contrast, analyze, you can say, break it into parts, and then try to arrive at the ineffable divine. Love will straight away bypass this whole process and declare, in everything there is delight. Raso vaisaha. And the way of the heart is such, the way of love is such, that it is ready to undergo any amount of sacrifice. It's like a labor of love. It is always often referred to as, this path is referred to as the labor of love. Love seeks union. And it doesn't only seek union, it seeks intensity of union. It not only seeks intensity of union, it seeks eternity of union. Though seemingly it may seem very difficult, union, intensity, eternity, but the path of the love, the way through the heart is actually the simplest. One just plunges into it. And then everything emerges out of it. Even the intellect, the way forward from the intellect also emerges out of that. Let us read this prayer. December 16, 1913. Pure and disinterested love, thy love in what we are able to perceive and manifest of it is the sole key that can open all hearts that seek for thee. Those who follow the path of the intellect may have a very high and true conception. They may have all the information about the true life, the life one with thee, but they do not know it. They have no inner experience of that life and are ignorant of all contact with thee. These men, whose knowledge is intellectual and whose action is confined to a construction which they believe to be the best, are the most difficult of all to convert. It is harder to awaken the consciousness of the divine in them than in any other person of goodwill. Love alone can work this miracle, for love opens all doors, penetrates every wall, clears, every obstacle. And a little true love does more than the most beautiful speeches. Lord, let this pure flower of love blossom in me, that it may give its fragrance to all those who come near us, and that this fragrance may sanctify them. In this love lie peace and joy, the fount of all strength and all realization. It is the infallible healer, the supreme consoler. It is the victor, the sovereign teacher. O Lord, my sweet Master, thou whom I adore in silence, and to whom I have entirely consecrated myself, thou who governest my life, kindle in my heart the flame of thy pure love, that it may burn like a glowing brazier, consuming all imperfections and transforming into a comforting warmth and radiating light the dead wood of egoism and the black coals of ignorance. O Lord, I turn towards Thee with a devotion at once joyful and solemn, and I implore Thee, let Thy love manifest, Thy reign come, may Thy peace govern the world. Sri Aurobindo, in Life Divine, he's talked of two types of human beings, the intellectuals and the psychic human beings. He has also given them some names, but the intellectuals, they may have a very real conception of what the divine is, of the eternal. They may also know what the ultimate realization is, but what maybe they miss out on something which is joy, delight, and this peculiar feeling. This is called vakrata in love. They may miss out something like that. So even when one is very advanced on this path, those who have had the ultimate realization, following the path of even love, they do like to keep a little bit of a difference between the divine and us or myself, just to feel that delight of approaching the divine. This is a peculiar kind of delight, but nevertheless, the bhakta, the lover, is rejoicing in this small step also that he needs to take to reach the beloved, the union with the beloved. Let us look at this prayer now. In the first part, the mother is saying, pure and disinterested love. What a powerful opening to a prayer. Pure and disinterested love. And when the mother has talked about her Lord, her Master, she has often referred to him as the Lord of purity and love. Pure and disinterested love. It almost seems like a hymn, a song that is being sung by the mother. Thy love, in what we are able to perceive and manifest of it, is the sole key that can open all hearts that seek for Thee. So this love that the mother is talking of is so different from the usual concept of love that we have, which believes in give and take, seeking and getting something in return. This is very different. This is disinterested love, not seeking anything for oneself. And it is pure. Pure why? Anything that leads to the divine, to the beloved, that path, anything that takes away the insincerity from us. So it is a love which will break through all barriers and lead only towards the divine. Anything that takes us away from the divine or takes us away from the path is undivine. But this love that she's talking of is pure, pure in sincerity, in utter sincerity. So this bhakti and the love that the mother is carrying is the purest form of love. And when mother has talked about love, she has talked about it as a complete oneness. And it seeks nothing for itself, but it is all about absolute self-giving. Later on, she has also said that the heart has wings and not the head. And beyond that also she has said that within my heart beat the heart of all men. So she is the divine heart carrying the divine love. There is no doubt about it. This love that she's talking of does not put conditions. It does not seek anything in return. It is pure and disinterested. Those who follow the path of the intellect may have a very high and true conception. They may have all the information about the true life, the life one with thee, but they do not know it. They have no inner experience of that life and are ignorant of all contact with thee. Sri Aurobindo has said that man may have the highest possible intellectual realization of God, but just the intellectual conceptualization and realization and not living that life is not yoga. True yoga begins when we actually start living that life, which we have conceptualized, even our intellect has conceptualized. We often find that many people turn to Sri Aurobindo through his writings. They read, and when they read, they experience a wideness. And it is very essential for them to experience this wideness. And it is a great help on the path of the yoga. But Sri Aurobindo himself has said that reading is not all. Reading is not the yoga. It may not suffice. You may have realized a lot of things as to what the divine stands for, where we need to go, what are the steps we need to take, what are the methods, what are the processes. Yet, it is quite possible that in spite of that, you may never have had the experience or have lived that life. We may read about God, we may read about everything that we need to follow on this path. We may sit for hours in meditation and contemplation, yet be very far from the eternal truth. So intellectually capable of conceptualizing that life has no meaning unless we really start living that life. True essence of yoga is in becoming one. Yoga is union. It means becoming one with that life. So, as the very famous and I sometimes find it very funny, पोथी पढ़ पढ़ के मुआ पंडित भया न कोय, ढाई अखर प्रेम के पढ़े सो पंडित होय. In Dante's Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy is about the passage of life through various realms of hell, heaven and beyond. So while on his journey, he asks Virgil to take him to that ultimate truth, to take him to that beyond, which is above everything else, which is beyond the beyond. And Virgil, he is a very learned person. He has written so much, yet he refuses. He says, I cannot take you there. And what finally comes out is that Beatrice, a simple peasant girl, a village girl, whom he was in love with, Dante was in love with, she comes and then she takes him through the path. And he asks her, why did you come? And she was a simple, very simple peasant girl, but had a lot of love in her heart. She says, but for love I have come. Because of love, I came to take you. And Sri Ramakrishna has said that there is a lot of hope for the simple people who don't have a very complicated thinking, who are very simple and faithful, and they follow a very simple life. There is no complication with their intellect or the mind. They don't question so much and they don't think so much. For them, there is a lot of hope that they will reach that high state. And yet another kind of person he is talked of who also has a hope is the intellectual, yes, the intellectual who has read a lot, who has realized a lot, but is not satisfied. He finds something missing. For that person also there is hope. But for the Pandits who think they have read a lot, have had the ultimate realizations and are ready to give gyan and who are ready to tell the people, okay, this is the path, for them there is hardly any hope. Mother goes on to say, these men whose knowledge is intellectual and whose action is confined to a construction which they believe to be the best are the most difficult of all to convert. It is harder to awaken the consciousness of the divine in them than in any other person of goodwill. The mother is also pointing to the same thing, that, but here while she is talking of that how it is very difficult to convert these people, she is also throwing light and she is also bringing out what are the dangers, what are the pitfalls on this path. These people with very high intellectual knowledge can form cults, can have mental formations, and go towards religious dogmas which they themselves are not able to come out from. And they may read out very emphatic shlokas from the Upanishads, from the Vedanta, and Sanskrit scriptures and all. But they have these little formations. Sometimes they are little, sometimes they are moderately, you can say moderate, but at times they can be very grotesque formations too. And to move them out of this path, it is very difficult. In fact, it is a very pathetic situation. One can seek the divine in hundreds of ways, thousands of ways. Integral yoga is all about that. It does not lay out a process or a path for any specific type of individual or a specific path for any individual for that matter. Sanatana Dharma is also about the same. So there is no prescribed path for anyone. One has to find his or her own path by traveling this path, by walking this path. And these people who have developed these kind of mental constructs, they face a lot of struggle, though they will never admit that there is a struggle. Some sort of a, you can say, false glorification they feel. There was a Japanese person who had come to the mother in Pondicherry, and mother was trying, and she helped him a lot, and she wanted him to come to the ashram and stay. But while the mother was helping and he was having these realizations and all, now Japanese are very fond of their motherland. Most of the Japanese, they are extremely fond of their motherland. They are very patriotic. So he felt that by following this path, he may have to give up the love, intense love that he feels for his motherland, which was, again, I think it was a mental construct, and he was not able to come out of it. And there was another person in the ashram whom Sri Aurobindo was trying to give the experience of the infinite, and he actually felt that he was going mad, and he left it. In the ashram also, there used to be many people who would come to the mother with lots of their problems, and lots of problems of the other people also. It was in the form of a small complaints also that used to come to the mother, and often people would come to her, why don't you punish this person who is not on the path of this truth, who is not clinging to the truth? And the mother, sometimes she would laugh it off, and sometimes she would say, there was an incident where somebody said, Ma, this woman is having a relationship in the ashram. And the mother said, here also people talk like this. But what she meant was that here also you are not able to come out of these silly concepts or these, these mental formations that you have. You are staying in the ashram, you should be above all these things now. So also there is an example of a person who went to meet a yogi, and he was told that there is a great yogi who resides there. When he went to meet the yogi, he found that the yogi was not wearing saffron clothes, He didn't look like a yogi, the so-called definition of the appearance of the yogi. And he was talking very normally, just like you and me. And he felt, what kind of a yogi is he? So, and he went off. And the mother said, he missed a great opportunity. So these are all mental constructs. Many times it has happened here also and in Pondicherry also, that people have come to the ashram thinking this is an ashram, it is like a hermitage, so they will find sadhus and they will hear a lot of chantings and they will see a lot of yoga being done and all those things. They find nothing of the sort. Only work is going on. And we have one person sitting over here who walked into this ashram, but he was fascinated by this fact that this is a place where people work and there is nothing so-called the tags of the usual sannyasi or the sadhu or the ashrams over here, and he's been here ever since. So true knowledge does not actually come from the intellect, and this intelligence, we think it is ours, this intellect is ours. The moment we realize and we know that this intelligence is not ours, this intellect is not ours, it is the mother's consciousness and love pouring in you to become the intelligence. And when we realize that, extraordinary things can happen. The same intelligence which was very limited, the intelligence was never yours, so it is not limited by your capacity even. The moment we realize that it is the mother's love and consciousness becoming that intelligence in you, extraordinary amplification of the intelligence happens. And then the intellect, one has also the vision and the true intelligence to go beyond this intellect, this human intellect. And then the true Gyan Yoga actually starts. There is also a story about Kapali Shastri ji. He himself has narrated this, and he was an erudite scholar, Sanskrit scholar. He had studied all the scriptures and he had mastered them. Mastered means he has really understood and mastered them. And when he came to Sri Aurobindo, after that he became Sri Aurobindo's disciple and stayed in the ashram. And somebody asked him later on that you have studied so much, you have read so much, you have studied the Shastras, you are an expert, and you have had on your own realizations, of Kundalini and all. So ultimately you came here to the ashram. What was the use of all these things then? What was the use? Finally you had to come to this ashram. So then Kapali Shastri ji replied. He says, because of those realizations and moving by the grace of the master, moving beyond those, because of all those things, I came to the divine feet of the mother. Such was his realization. To think that the divine judges by moral meters and human meters is so absurd. It is very foolish. The divines, when one tries to define the divine's qualification, well, the divine is beyond all this. And it is also a construct of the intellect which is making you look for those qualifications to say that, okay, this person is divine, this person is not divine. So it is very difficult to understand the Leela, but it is so easy to fall in love with the Leela. And Udhav is confused. He doesn't know what is this Leela about. Udhav karman ki gati nyari, ujwal pankh diye bagule ko, koyal ke bidhekari, मूर्ख राज करत है, पंडित फिरे भिकारी. So once somebody had asked the mother also that, oh, this person is very, very enlightened and he's struggling and he's doing so much of good yoga here in the ashram. Next life will be wonderful for him. And the mother says, next life he will be born in a very great family, it seems. And the mother, she replied very ironically, she says, or maybe he will become a good shoemaker. So it is the divine's Leela, the divine has her own ways. So these are all mental constructs to see that, okay, this is the path and this is what we need to do. This is it. Isse alag kuch nahi ho sakta. All that. So mother goes on to say, love alone can work this miracle. For love opens all doors, penetrates every wall, clears every obstacle, and a little true love does more than the most beautiful speeches. Sri Aurobindo in Savitri writes, its presence made the smallest seem divine. Its absence left the greatest actions dull. So when we love somebody, when we are in love, we accept the person unconditionally, don't we? And we start growing into the nature of the person we love. And this is what oneness is all about. Do we then stop loving the person only? You start loving a person, do you only love the person then? Remember in teenage, when we all experience this, we start loving everything, and around, whatever is around that person, we start loving everything. So this is wideness of love. Love cannot stay in a narrow heart. It can stay only in wideness. If you try to stifle love, it will vanish. वो स्वामी विवेकानंद का वो एग्जाम्पल उन्होंने दिया था ना, that somebody asked him what is love. He opened his palm and he says, put a drop of water here, and then he closed it, and then he again opened it. Where's the water? It's gone. So he says love is like that. The moment you try to stifle it, it can stay only, the drop will stay only in wideness. If the moment you close your palm, it will go. So in Hindi, there is a saying, प्रेम देरी, दूरी और पर्दा मिटा देता है. So love wipes out the time, the distance, and parda, what can you say? The veil, the gap between the lover and the beloved. So when we are thinking with the intellect and we are trying to proceed on the path only with the help of our intellect, we often wonder, कितना लंबा है ये रास्ता, पता नहीं कब मिलेंगे भगवान, क्या होगा, I have to do so much more, and सोच के थकान होने लगती है शायद. So I need to attain these certain qualities, I need to read more books, I need to do this. But love is so simple. You stand in front of the divine as you are, minus all your virtues, minus all your defects, whatever. Even with your defects, you can stand in front of the divine. You don't have to tell the divine, look, I can go to the divine and love the divine only with certain qualifications. Okay, we don't need any qualifications. We just need to be ourselves and stand before the divine as we are. If we stand before the divine as we are, the divine will reveal himself as he is. Nirbal ho Balaram pukaro aaye aadhe naam. So nothing, Sri Aurobindo says, nothing is denied to the God lover. For he is the very self of the beloved. Bhagwan swayang aa jayenge. And he can come in any form. He can come in the form of a book. He can come in the form of a song. He can come in the form of a person, a situation. He can come in any way. But the moment you have opened and there is love in your heart for the divine also has bhakti. We think that hamari bhakti hai. The divine loves the bhakta. Hum bhagtan ke bhagat hamare. So this is such a you can say strong promise made by the Lord, that if you turn to me, तुम मुझ में मन मना भव, मुझ में मन वाला हो, मेरा नाम कर, मेरी पूजा कर. It's not because he is saying it out of his own grandiose. He means every word that he is uttering. You come to me and I will take all, मैं सारा भार, I will take all your burdens on myself. So there is a very beautiful song in English. It says, the opening line says, if it matters to you, it matters to the master. Mother goes on to say, Lord, let this pure flower of love blossom in me, that it may give its fragrance to all those who come near us, and that this fragrance may sanctify them. So beautiful. A prayer where she is asking all for love and love for all. Love is like ever seen a flower, the beautiful fragrance? The flower does not hold on to the fragrance. It is just giving it out. And anybody who comes and smells and feels that fragrance opens to something higher. And these are little things by which we actually, these are little gateways into knowing what the divine, what the delight of the divine actually is. You see a beautiful picture, or you are in a very beautiful place, the waves, the river, a beautiful flower, and suddenly you get a feeling the heart melts. We often talk of this, the heart melts. And when the heart melts, at that time, if we can stamp the name of the divine in our heart, it becomes permanent. The heart melts. And what is this stamp? How do we stamp? It is with gratitude. Automatically. Gratitude, what is gratitude? Gratitude is nothing but a little earthiness of love that you feel. So the moment you stamp the name of the divine in those particular moments, and it stays forever. And one actually enters that delight which one is meant to experience. Love is something, however distorted, however reflected, deflected, refracted, it is still the sap of existence. And it can take us through the doors, passing through which we can encounter the most attractive, the most beautiful, perhaps, thing for which this creation came, that is the delight. Also, people who have a lot of, one will see that people who have experienced this and have delight and rejoice in this delight which is there in the creation at the smallest, at every little opportunity that is given, they carry so much of love in their heart that it touches everything around, just like a flower. The fragrance of the flower is not only around this little flower. It can, the moment you enter the garden, you will feel that fresh fragrance. So it touches everybody. Interesting story about Tulsi Das ji. He wrote the Ramcharitmanas, and once somebody came and gave him a lot of wealth. उनके पास काफ़ी पैसा कोई दे गया. And he bundled it up and kept it in his hut, and he went to sleep. And there were two thieves who actually saw this, and their mind was working on how to get that money, that potli. So at night they come to his hut, and they are waiting for, while everything is dark and quiet, they will sneak in and steal this. So the moment they try to enter the hut, they see that there are two young lads holding bow and arrow, and they are patrolling Tulsidas ji's house, going round and round. So they withdraw, and again they try to come. Every time they make an attempt, they find these two lads patrolling. So raat bhar yahi karte rahe wo. And finally, because they had, anybody who knows Tulsidas ji and Ramcharit would know that Rama and Lakshmana had come. So because they had the darshan of Rama and Lakshmana, they got transformed, the thieves got transformed. And so in the morning, they fell at Tulsidas ji's feet, and they said, maaf kar dijiye and all. So then he says, it's okay and all. But then they asked him a question. He says, but tell us, who are these two lads you have employed around, who keep on, keeping guard in your house? Because of them, we could not even enter. So, and Tulsidas ji's reaction was something else. He starts crying. Tears flow down his, And why? He says, for this little bundle of money, my Lord had to come himself and protect. So, so he somehow he manages to do away with that wealth by donating it and doing good with that money, and then he's free. But his reaction, and so the Lord is always there, With the intellect, we cannot understand even these stories or these tales that we hear. There is a deeper truth in these. So much of, if you ask somebody today, what do you want? They will say knowledge. We are seeking knowledge. There is so much of mad rush for knowledge, and so much of talk about knowledge, how much I know, how much you know, do you know this, do you know that? And another thing they seek is power, because power will make them fulfill their dreams, their wishes will come true. But so far, the humanity that is developing around knowledge and power. Of course, knowledge and power were required in the creation itself. But only with power and knowledge, the humanity that has developed so far, seeking only power and knowledge, is similar to an Asuric humanity. Asura has knowledge and power, but he has no love. So this humanity that develops around power and knowledge is an Asuric kind of a humanity. In spite of that, the world has not gone to blazes. And Mother says, because of love, the world has not gone to blazes. For all the things that we go on looking for in ignorance, the earth would have turned into a field of the Asuras very long time back. But it is love. Consciousness is the creatrix of the universe, Mother says, but love is its savior. And Mother is talking of, in this love lie peace and joy, the fount of all strength and realization. It is the infallible healer, the supreme consoler. It is the victor, the sovereign teacher. So the very strength and transforming power of love, what could that be? What is that power of love? Love, genuine love, true love, always finds expression. And what is this expression? How does it express itself? Well, love, true love, genuine love, always expresses itself in service, in doing for others. What is love if it is not translated into acts of divine service? So, if we look at bhakti, if we look at the word bhakti, the root word of bhakti in Sanskrit is bhaja. And the secret behind this, somebody said, when we add the word seva, bhaja sevayam, then the word bhaja finds its true meaning. Do the parents love the child more, or the child loves the parent more? Of course, it is the parent. Why? Because he does more for the child. So, the parent obviously loves the child more. But such is the wonderful thing about love is that even if there is difficulty, even if there are troubles, even if there are problems, love grows. It becomes more. So, the dosha or the difficulty or the obstacles, they lead to seva. This is the transforming power of love. This is the strength of love, that it translates itself into acts of service. So, if there is a problem with a child, and this is a known fact that mothers have a special corner and special affection for the child who is weak and who is not able to do things on his own. So, it is even that the more the weakness, the more the obstacle, the more outpouring of the love actually takes place. So, dosha leads to seva in love. And only love has got this magic power. Also, there is this thing about the joy, the bliss of union in love. Besides the strength and the transforming power, it is the joy of union, the bliss of union. And how do we know that we have actually reached that stage of bliss of union? Again, when the loved one receives, whether from the divine or from human or from anywhere, whether the loved one receives, it pours out to others. That is the bliss of union. So Dr. Love heals, is the supreme healer. And Dr. Love, the PhDs of PhDs, is the divine teacher. Besides all this, the transforming power, the ups and downs, the union and all, the nature of love is that it will soothe, it will calm, it will bring peace, and more affectionate feelings, and it will translate into more and more acts of divine service. Now, one could take the example of how it soothes. The love can turn even the demons and even the most cruelest and the most, you can say, the agitated person, it has the power to calm down. Narsimha avatar, when he killed Hiranyakashipu, his form was very, frightening. And after that, it was very difficult for him to come out of that. And people were very scared. They were running helter and skelter. Then somebody puts Prahlad onto his lap, and he immediately calms down. There is a story, a funny story I'm reminded of. In India, many children, they perform plays, especially in the villages and all. They do these plays and all. So once there was a play which was, it happened in Bengal. Once there was a play which was happening on Narsimha Avatar, and the children were doing it, and there was a stage setting which was made of 2 pillars, of the palace, and the child who was supposed to play Narsimha Avatar was hiding behind one of the pillars. And so in the climax of the scene, then this Narsimha Hiranyakashipu is asking Prahlad, so is your lord, is Hari inside this pillar? Now the child who had become Prahlad, he knew that the child who has become Narsimha Avatar is behind the other pillar. So he said, no, he is behind this pillar. So it was like a smart act by a smart child, and I think it must have given a blow to the omnipotence of the Lord. So it's reminded of it. So ultimately what happens is, with the love, when we open to the Lord, the Lord is always there. He is always there taking care of us. We just have to open to Him in love. And we should not think that we need to be qualified. हमारे अंदर इतनी बुराइयां हैं, हमारे अंदर इतनी कमियां हैं, मैं भगवान के पास जाऊं कैसे? But the Lord Himself says, come to me. Mother says, come to me as you are. Because if you come to me with your virtues and everything, trying to cover up everything, I will have more work to do in you. So come to me as you are, and I will be able to work in you much better. So the Lord gives Himself to the devotee fully. It's not about, and to every devotee He gives Himself fully. Saint Teresa of Avila. She was a Spanish nun, and she would not call herself as Saint Teresa of Avila. She would call herself as Teresa of Jesus. And so one day she had a vision, and she saw a person with robes and beard and all. Obviously it was Jesus. And the apparition, the vision, that form, he asks Saint Teresa, who are you? And she says, I am Teresa of Jesus. And then she asks him, who are you? And the form replies, I am Jesus of Teresa. So once there was a man goes to a palace, and he says, I know the king, let me enter. I know the king. So, and I know him very well, so please let me enter. Watchman says, he's given strict instructions. So he says, it doesn't matter whether you know the king. Does the king know you? So in love, everything, it is open. It's an open secret. Like I said earlier, hum bhaktan ke bhagat hamare. The Lord is there with you all the time. Mother goes on to say, and there's such a beautiful and a strong prayer. It's not a mechanical prayer. It is one of the most powerful prayers. O Lord, my sweet Master, Thou whom I adore in silence, and to whom I have entirely consecrated myself, Thou who governest my life, kindle in my heart the flame of Thy pure love, that it may burn like a glowing brazier, consuming all imperfections and transforming into a comforting warmth and radiating light the dead wood of egoism and the black coals of ignorance. The mother, such a strong prayer. The mother here, she is ready to take the burden of everybody. And this is a prayer, she is ready to go to any extent to burn herself out, burn out the ego. And because ego is one very big hurdle in the path of yoga. So, and love has the power to annihilate this ego completely. Only love has that power. The more you love, the more you think about another person, the more you think about others. And the more this ego becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So she, strong prayer, she's saying that just becoming like a brazier. Brazier is those angithi, the coal, they used to put the coal and burn. So the comparison and the feeling with which she is writing is like she's ready to put everything for the sake of love. And not love for oneself, but love for all. All for love. Anything for love. And love for all. It is like अमीर खुसरो ने जो लिखा ना, खुसरो दरिया प्रेम का उल्टी वाकी धार, जो उबरा सो डूब गया, जो डूबा सो पार. अब उबरता कौन है? ऊपर वेव्स के ऊपर आ जाते हो, गोता लगा लगा के ऊपर आ जाते. कौन ऊपर ला रहा है आपको? द इंटेलेक्ट. Oh, the water is very deep, I cannot stay here, let me take a breath, I need fresh air. So the intellect is making you come up, but the lover does not think anything. He just plunges. And this darya, this sea, this ocean, it is moving in the reverse current. The current is reverse. And Jigar Muradabadi added more flavor to this, I think. He said, ये इश्क नहीं आसान, बस इतना समझ लीजिए. एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है. एक तो उल्टी करंट, डूब के पार लगाना है. और ऊपर से ये आग का दरिया है. So it's like the feeling is that one is ready to go to any extent for the sake of the beloved. And is the beloved far away? And one realizes that realization that the prem deri duri or parda mita deta hai na, deri. You're thinking, but for the devotee, he is very happy because Radha, why the gopis are not able to understand why Radha is not sad because Krishna has left Vrindavan. So because Radha is carrying Krishna in her heart. So she never feels that separation. And she knows he is here now, I can talk to him, he is within me, I am in him, he is in me. There is no difference now. So this is the bliss of union, this is the power of love. And somewhere Sri Aurobindo wrote in Savitri, her love is vaster than the universe. And one of the prayers later on Mother has written, thy love is vaster than the universe. Is it a mere coincidence, one wonders. She goes on to say, and there is a prayer for everybody, for the whole world. She's carrying the whole earth in her. O Lord, I turn towards Thee with a devotion at once joyful and solemn. And I implore Thee, let Thy love manifest, Thy reign come, may Thy peace govern the world. We can just read the prayer once more. Pure and disinterested love, Thy love, in what we are able to perceive and manifest of it, is the sole key that can open all hearts that seek for Thee. Those who follow the path of the intellect may have a very high and true conception. They may have all the information about the true life, the life one with Thee, but they do not know it. They have no inner experience of that life and are ignorant of all contact with Thee. These men, whose knowledge is intellectual and whose action is confined to a construction which they believe to be the best, are the most difficult of all to convert. It is harder to awaken the consciousness of the divine in them than in any other person of goodwill. Love alone can work this miracle, for love opens all doors, penetrates every wall, clears every obstacle, and a little true love does more than the most beautiful speeches. Lord, let this pure flower of love blossom in me, that it may give its fragrance to all those who come near us, and that this fragrance may sanctify them. In this love lie peace and joy, the fount of all strength and all realization. It is the infallible healer, the supreme consoler. It is the victor, the sovereign teacher. O Lord, my sweet Master, thou whom I adore in silence, and to whom I have entirely consecrated myself, thou who governest my life, kindle in my heart the flame of thy pure love, that it may burn like a glowing brazier, consuming all imperfections and transforming into a comforting warmth, and radiating light the dead wood of egoism and the black coals of ignorance. O Lord, I turn towards Thee with a devotion at once joyful and solemn, and I implore Thee, let Thy love manifest, Thy reign come, may Thy peace govern the world.